All right, we're going to tackle one of humanity's biggest, oldest questions. But we're coming at it with a really surprising answer from the world of quantum physics. The question is this: is death just an illusion, something our minds made up?
Okay, let's just dive right in with this quote from scientist Dr. Robert Lanza. Death does not exist in any real sense. Now, that is a bold statement, but this isn't just some philosophical musing. It's an idea that's actually rooted in quantum theory. And today, we're going to unpack how that theory could completely flip everything we think we know about the end of life. So, to even begin to get our heads around this, we have to look at consciousness in a totally new way. Not as just a byproduct of our biology, but as a fundamental type of energy. This is a huge shift in thinking, so let's break down what that really means. So on one hand, you've got the standard biological view, right? The body stops, the brain goes dark, and that's it. Game over. But the quantum view, well, that suggests something completely different. It says death isn't an endpoint. It's more like a transition, where the quantum information that makes you isn't destroyed, it's just conserved. Think of it like water turning into steam. It's still the same stuff, just in a different form. This idea comes from a theory called biocentrism, and honestly, it's a bit of a mind bender. We usually think the universe was here first, and then, life just sort of popped up in it. Biocentrism flips that script completely. It says our consciousness is what actually creates the universe, that space and time aren't things we live in, they're tools our mind uses to make sense of everything. So we're not just passive observers of reality, we're creating it. And here's the thing, a core law of physics actually backs up this pretty radical idea, the law of conservation of energy. It's simple. Energy can't be created or destroyed. So if consciousness is a form of energy, then when the body dies, that energy can't just vanish. It has to go somewhere. It has to be transformed. And here's a number that makes this really concrete. That feeling of being you, all your thoughts, your awareness, it's basically a 20-watt energy field running inside your brain, a constant, low-power current. And when the body shuts down, that 20 watts of you-ness doesn't just switch off into nothingness. Okay, so this brings up a huge question. If our consciousness is this cloud of quantum information, where is it all stored? Well, the theory points to the most complex object we know of in the entire universe, our own brain. The human brain has somewhere around 86 billion neurons. Let that sink in. That's more neurons than there are stars in our galaxy. It is, without a doubt, the most insanely complex structure we've ever found. And if you're looking for a place to host a quantum reality, you couldn't design a better one. This leads us right to something called the quantum brain theory. Physicists, including the famous Sir Roger Penrose, think that consciousness isn't just about how neurons connect to each other. They believe it's happening at a much deeper quantum level. Inside our brain cells are these tiny protein structures called microtubes. You can think of them as the skeleton of the cell. The theory is that these little tubes are acting like qubits, which are the building blocks of a quantum computer. So instead of just being on or off, they can be in many states at once, making them the perfect place to store something as complex as consciousness. And this is where it gets really, really weird. Using some seriously advanced math, researchers have discovered that when your neurons connect, they're not just building 3D structures. They're creating these incredibly complex geometric shapes that exist in up to 11 different mathematical dimensions. And this just shows you how it works. It's like your brain is constantly building and dissolving this incredible multidimensional sandcastle. As you think, as you process information, it forms these mind-bogglingly complex shapes, and then they collapse, making way for the next thought. This constant dynamic building and collapsing might just be the very fabric of our conscious experience. So, if you accept this quantum view of consciousness, it opens the door to some absolutely fascinating possibilities. We're talking about everything from explaining near-death experiences to exploring what immortality, both spiritual and technological, could actually look like. Sir Roger Penrose actually has a theory for what's going on during a near-death experience. He argues that when someone is clinically dead, that quantum information inside the microtubules gets released out into the universe. And if they're brought back to life, that information flows back in. That sudden rush of quantum data is what causes those vivid, reality-bending experiences that people report. But what if resuscitation doesn't happen? Well, the theory suggests that this quantum information, the data of who you are, doesn't just fade away. It could continue to exist outside the body, in a larger reality, unbound by our physical world. A concept that, let's be honest, sounds an awful lot like what we'd call a soul. Now, moving away from the pure quantum theories for a second, technology is already chasing immortality down two very different paths. On one side, you've got biological immortality, trying to fix the body forever with things like gene editing. On the other side, you've got digital immortality, which is all about leaving the body behind and preserving our consciousness as pure data. And if you think digital immortality is just science fiction, check this out. In a real experiment, scientists literally transferred a memory from one sea snail to another just by injecting its RNA. The second snail, which had never been trained, started acting as if it had the first snail's memory. This is incredible. It shows that the data of our experience might actually be physically extractable, and that's a huge first step towards one day, maybe, uploading a mind. So after all that, whether our consciousness is quantum data that lives forever or a file we might one day upload to a computer, all these incredible theories seem to point back to one thing. The experience we are having right now is profoundly important. So what does that mean for how we should live our lives? You know, the possibility that our consciousness goes on doesn't make this life any less precious. Actually, it does the opposite. It reframes it. Whether this is our only shot or just one chapter in a very long book, the big lesson seems to be that our fear of the end might be based on a totally false idea. So maybe the real takeaway isn't to figure out the great unknown. Maybe it's to stop wasting so much energy worrying about what happens after our 20-watt consciousness leaves the body, and to focus instead on what that consciousness is creating in this very moment. Because ultimately, this experience of living, of building that multi-dimensional sandcastle with every thought, is unbelievably fleeting and completely irreplaceable. According to physics, this exact arrangement of you, right now, will never, ever happen again. And that really leaves us with one last powerful question. Whether our consciousness is eternal or not, our impact here is real. So if this life is our one chance to leave a positive mark, what will we do with it? The meaning we create in this reality is what truly defines us. Thanks for watching.
Health is the most precious gift. If this video helped you or someone you love, please like, subscribe, and share so more families can stay safe and healthy.